Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Lizzy Jensen Show. Full disclosure here, I have not been in the studio in over a month. I've been batching these episodes, and it feels like I haven't been on here or talking to you in forever, and I have missed it. I'm so happy to be back. There is a version of my life where I would actually love to do some daily talk show. I think it would be the funnest thing in the world. And I think I know how much I love it when I step away, right, for just a minute and then come back and realize like, man, this is just, it's the best. Has also been really fun as I've been traveling some. Our family took a family trip to Peru over Thanksgiving, which was incredible. And maybe I'll share more about on the podcast if there's relevant lessons. But also have just been out enjoying holiday things and spending time in our community. And it is just really rewarding when I meet someone who's found the podcast and has been blessed by it and touched by something I've shared or that a guest has shared. And so if you ever see me out, come give me a big hug. I totally welcome it. I would love it. And just love getting to meet you, hear your feedback, hear how this podcast is impacting you. So thank you for the hugs, for the kind words, for the individual stories that you've shared about decisions you've made and bold steps you have taken in your life because of what's been shared on this show. So it's really an honor to be back. It was an honor to meet some of you over this past month. If you are new here, I want to just give you a big welcome. If you've just found the show, if you are an old timer, a regular here, I want to say thank you for being here. I'm honored you're here. Wherever you are listening in from, if you're finding this the week of holiday break, if you are wrapping presents, if you are a college student driving home or driving to school, I love you the most. I love my college girls. I just love when I get messages from you. I love talking to you. I was talking to a friend the other day and she asked why I say that I love this college age so much. And I told her I think the reason why I love this age so much is because you have the ability at your age, if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, whatever, even older, to do something different with these principles. You have the ability to do something like compounding interest for money. When you're young and you hear a great principle in your life, it's just like when you save money when you're younger. The value of the compounding interest and savings on money you put away when you're young is remarkably different than when you're old because that savings just keeps compounding. The same thing when you find a principle that helps you when you're young. And I'm talking 20, 30-year-olds, and I'm even talking 40-year-olds. And of course, anyone younger, even older. If you have 40 more years, 30 more years, 20 more years to apply the principles you're hearing on this podcast, the ability it has to change your life is just greater and greater and greater. So if you're listening in and you're a college student, I want you to take extra care to the principles you're applying to your life right now. The difference that they are going to make if you act on them for 20 years right now in your life is unimaginable. It's hard for you to even predict how differently your life will be if you apply correct principles at this point in your life. The big decisions of life, who you choose to marry, whether or not you choose to have kids, how many kids you choose to have. All of those things are going to completely change how your life pans out. So I just love you. I love those of you who are making bold decisions to live a little differently, to trust yourself and the promptings and feelings you have in your own heart because of the things you're hearing on the show. So wherever you are listening in, and if you're not young, it's never too late. I love you too. I am excited that I have your ear. I love the kind of person that this podcast is attracting. You guys are the game changers. You guys are the world changers. It's a real honor to have your time and your ear, and I hope you know I don't take it lightly. As I thought about the topic today, we're going to be talking about New Year's. I have spent actually the full month trying to decide what was most important and what I wanted to share most with you. Last week, if you listened to last week's episode with David Butler, I brought him on to talk about New Year's, and then I still had so much I want to say, some of which was spurred on by my conversation with him. He's incredible. I just love having him in the studio. He's the first guest I've had on twice. I just thought, you know what, I have to do another one about New Year's. I have a few more things I want to say, but he also dove into the Christmas story a little, so I bumped that one up. And then little sneak preview of what's coming today. I also am going to be sharing a few things about Christmas because they felt so pertinent to me this year as I think about change and becoming. So I'm going to start a little bit unconventionally with this New Year's episode. One, I want, as I share these things, if you found this way after January, I don't want you to think it's not relevant anymore. It doesn't matter at what point you decide to change your life or become a little better or do a little something differently, right? And so first, it doesn't matter when you find this episode. Second, if you are someone who already almost wants to turn this episode off because you think, man, I've just tried so many things to change or to better my life, and I feel like it's a little hopeless, or the spot I'm in right now is just not a spot where I ever thought I would be, or I think God is even in. Maybe he doesn't even hear me. Maybe he's not even real. I want you to just check those assumptions at the door and just maybe give it a shot. Maybe listen in and see if there is something today that could apply to you and could benefit you. My unconventional start actually begins with a conversation I had just a few weeks ago with a friend, Katerina. She was telling me, I have a good friendship with her. She coaches me some, and it's really fun to hear her perspective. She was sharing with me a Catholic tradition that I wasn't aware of. My mom was Catholic most of her upbringing. My grandma was Catholic. And so I know a little bit about Catholic traditions and Catholic faith. But she shared with me when the 12 days of Christmas starts. She said, usually we will count down to Christmas, like maybe if we're doing Secret Santa for someone, we're thinking about the 12 days of Christmas. Maybe it starts on the December 1st and there's 24 days in an Advent, right? But she said in the Catholic tradition, they have Katerina, feel free to respond to me if I mess this up. I'm not an expert on Catholicism. I'm just sharing the takeaway that I had, which if you're Catholic, you can all correct me. But she said in the Catholic tradition, you have the 4 Sundays of Advent, and that is leading you up to Christmas and preparing your heart. But then rather like in most other traditions, and the tradition that I hold, where Christmas is like this firework and you burn out and you're exhausted, and then you spend the rest of the next week or two of your holiday thinking, what day is it and what has happened to me? They actually start the 12 days of Christmas on December 25th. It then leads up until the day of Epiphany, I believe on January 6th. And so you really have this time for your heart to be prepared, to prepare him room. That's one of my favorite lines of Christmas, of A Christmas Carol. And they also have feast days where they celebrate apostles and saints. And then on January 6th is when the vision of Jesus Christ and who he was actually went to the world of the coming of the Magi. Again, please forgive me if I got some of that wrong. Why this intro? I'm actually applying this as an aside to our own family Christmas this year. The minute Katerina told me about it, I thought that this is the most brilliant thing for young families, because traditionally the month of December, you are doing a lot of preparing. But in addition to that, you have school events, you have perhaps recitals, you have parties, corporate parties, company parties. And so really your ability to celebrate Christ and Christmas in your family, you then have those couple days after school ends before Christmas. And again, it's like that firework that burns brightly and then burns you out. So this year in our family, we're going to be practicing the 12 days of Christmas, starting from Christmas and after. And instead of saying, well, it's not Christmas anymore, we can't go to a concert or do this special service or whatever, we're going to have those 12 days to celebrate. So first off, highly recommended. I'm super excited. It's made me feel a lot more peaceful headed into this holiday season. But second, I want to take this thought of Christmas and those 12 days leading us into the new year as I share a little on this episode about what I'm doing to prepare and reset for 2026. I want to start by sharing something that God has taught me in the Christmas story this year that I believe can set us right up as we head into New Year. So, as an intro, I want to think of the Christmas story and what it teaches us. What I learned and what I took away, and I think what God was hitting me with over the head actually this year, is that God shows us that even though he does things that look small and confusing to our mortal minds, we can trust that he is doing it all perfectly. That is my takeaway from the Christmas story. Let's think about the Christmas story. According to how the world does things like kingly births, coronation, kingdom building, everything about the Christmas story is all wrong. If we were to think about how to do it right, if you knew you were preparing for something to happen in a royal kingdom, the way it happens at Christmas to Mary, to Joseph, to Jesus, to the wise men, it's all off. All off, right? It's backwards. It's too small. It's an impossible beginning for a king and a kingdom that's somehow going to fill the earth. You can't start in an unknown town. You can't start in a manger where that's where you put this baby. You can't start with rejection, with no place to stay and no place to deliver the child. If you really look at the Christmas story with fresh eyes, you will see that we have totally romanticized so many of the details. We talk with such fondness about a virgin birth, about a manger scene, about sweet little lambs in a stable. But think about what this actually must have been like. Jesus was born at a time of total political oppression. Stables are full of noise and dirt. Mary submitted herself to complete humiliation as she accepted becoming pregnant while not yet married. For Jesus and the Holy Family, these were actually the worst of times in almost every way. I came across an incredible sermon by Pastor Ken Shigematsu that pointed out, ironically, how terrible the circumstances were, but actually how perfect they were. So now let's look again. Jesus actually came at the perfect time culturally. What was the kingdom that came just before the Romans? It was the Greeks. Jesus was born just after the Greek culture and language had been spread widely. Now, why does this matter? Why is this perfect? Because more people in Jesus' world had learned to read than ever before in history. This was a literate people. That wasn't the norm before. Also, Greek language was very precise, and the Gospels were eventually written in Greek. This allowed for great record keeping. It also allowed for many people to read these great records in Greek. Next point, because Jesus was born in the relative height of the Roman Empire. Now, in one lens, it would have been better, you could say, if the Jews had been in power, right? According to Jesus' lineage, he would have been the literal king. He came through the lineage of David on both sides. However, from another viewpoint, one of the great benefits to being under the Roman Empire was that they were really good at building roads. They were incredible at it. They ended up connecting the world, really, through their great infrastructure. Again, why does this matter? Jesus lived a very short life, 33 years. That's all the time and record we have of his life. But because we had the roads, because we had the Greek language, because we had the state of enlightenment that the people were in, the gospel of Jesus Christ could spread. Now I'm going to do a little speculating. What would Jesus' life and upbringing have been like if he were born to a political leader or a rabbi? How was Jesus' life different because he was born to a simple carpenter? In some ways, again, you could say this is totally backwards. That's not who kings come through. That's not what their upbringing looks like. They need to learn how to be regal and royal and speak to the best. Or what did Jesus learn because his mother was from Nazareth and he was raised there? A place that was humble and people routinely mocked. There were phrases about those people who came from Nazareth. Now let's think about some of the holiest symbols, almost hidden right within the Christmas story. What about shepherds as the first witnesses? Again, wouldn't it be better if someone royal came and recognized? According to tradition, the Magi didn't even come for a few years. Shouldn't you send someone more appropriate, someone more important? But could it be because shepherds were the ones to choose the unspotted lamb in the Jewish tradition? They were the ones who chose the lamb who were born for sacrifice. And then they wrapped him in swaddling cloths. The same cloths that Mary wrapped Jesus in were the types of cloths that the perfect lambs were wrapped in when they were chosen for sacrifice. Again, from one lens, it just looks so backwards. It looks so insignificant. It looks so small. But what was God signaling of who this baby would be? Why the Magi right at the time where they came with the money? Could they have been the earthly recognition of a king? And could that money have been just needed for them to go live as refugees? Now let's talk about living as refugees and living in a totally different country. We can only speculate what the family learned, what happened there, what their living looked like, right? But was there something about being a refugee and being an outcast and living for time in a place where they weren't like everybody else that mattered to Jesus's upbringing, that mattered to how he was formed, to how he was parented young? Perhaps it did. Maybe something. So again, maybe some of these signs and symbols, and there's so many more as you dig into the story. Maybe it's speculation. Maybe that wasn't all divinely appointed in that way. But I think the Jews who had the eyes to see could see that every part of this story could point to God's hand in it. They could see that nothing that happened was just circumstantial. It didn't just happen. Everything was planned and prepared. Everything was purposeful. Everything about Jesus Christ's upbringing, about his life, about every little detail prepared him to be who he was. I think the Jews could see that the fulfillment of thousands of years of prophecies, from when he was born to how he died to the hours in which it happened, pointed to the fact that this was the most important event in all human history, and God was weaving the most perfect story, brilliantly, all powerfully, all knowingly. So what's been highlighted to me this Christmas, and what I want to bring out as we think about our own stories, is that no matter how small things feel in your life, no matter how backwards they feel, no matter how imperfect your stories appears, you can trust God. His timing is perfect. And I know you're not the son of God, and I'm not the son of God either, but he cares about you. You are his child. He cares about what happens, and he has work for you to do. I even believe that the trials and the hardship that are a part of your life might be exactly what you need to fulfill the purposes that God has in you, and maybe the exact things that are preparing you for your mission ahead. So as we turn now to the thoughts of the new year, where we are going to be placing our time, our attention, our energy, our focus, what we're going to cut out, what we're going to add, who we are going to become, I want you to start this episode and whatever personal preparation you do as you think about where you are and take inventory in your life. And I want you to feel a fire in your heart that God is with you, that God is preparing you, that God has great things in store for you. And if that means, like Joseph of Egypt, you are 10 years, or is it 16 years? I think 16 years in a prison to prepare you for the work ahead to save your own family, that time is going to be well spent and worth it. He has placed you just where he needs you with the skills and trials you need. Even if you're making poor choices, he can take these things like Paul, who once was Saul, who learned very important lessons there. He can take wherever you have come from, and it is never too late and it's never too early to take what you are, who you are now, to become the next version of you and to create a life where you can make impact for him. Trust him. Let this belief now make you bold as you think about what's ahead. Now, the last caveat I want to give before we jump into where we're going from here and how I want to be approaching New Year's this year is a really interesting statistic that I heard, that most people greatly overestimate what they can do in 1 year and greatly underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So as you're thinking about, maybe I've fired you up too much, like, hey, I'm exactly where I need to be. There's nothing I can't do. And then you might approach this upcoming year and put too much on your plate. In the same vein, as we talked about the Christmas story and about Jesus Christ, don't be afraid of the small things. His birth was mostly unnoticed. Some of the things that you may feel to do to change your life may be very small things that nobody else sees around you except those very close to you or a dear friend who knows your heart. Don't be afraid of this. God's scale is so different than our scale. He wants us to touch the one instead of worry about the million. He cares about the small intents and thoughts in our heart rather than the big gifts we donate in front of all the other people, right? So don't be afraid to go small and think small. So where do we want to go from here? With the trust that you're exactly where you need to be, with the right training, trials, and position to set you up for this next step in your life, for the impact you're uniquely ready to make right now, I want to talk about what I see missing in the podcasts and the literature and the ideas around New Year's. There is so much great content around New Year's. I'm sure you've seen it like I see it, maybe to the point where it just starts to become like background noise, right? Maybe there's a little bit of burnout of hearing about New Year's ideas. If so, I get it. I've been there. I screenshot and send myself so many things from social media and podcasts like, ooh, I could apply that and I could do that. And there's an endless supply of things that we could do to improve our lives. But I see something missing in this literature. And the thing that I see missing might be the most important thing of all. I'm going to restate that sentence. The biggest thing I see missing in the content around goal setting and achieving, whether it's at New Year's or really any time of year, is that they're missing the most important question. And that question is, what do you want? What do you want? Too often we start seeing all these ideas come in. Too often we start hearing all of the great ideas and seeing a new thing come in about a strategy around a goal or the way to achieve something more. And we jump right into goals and achievement and miss the first step. What do I want? Where do I want to go? Where's the friction in my life? We take that first step without ever first stepping back and assessing where we are right now. Now, I think there's a really clear reason for this. I think the reason we never stop to ask ourselves what we really want comes down to something our generation faces that is different than I believe any other generation. And that is the level of noise that we face. It is actually insane how much noise we face in our everyday lives. Now, you may be listening in and you may say, oh, I don't really face a lot of noise. I really am careful. I'm not on social media. I don't really listen to podcasts except yours. I tune out a lot of the stuff. But even as you drive on the street, the amount of billboards, or if you're talking to people, the amount of ideas that they have, like we just are in an age of information overload. There are so many messages telling you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, how you should be living, what you should be buying, that if you aren't careful, you might totally miss what it is that you actually want to do and what you're actually made for. And you may live your whole life living someone else's dream and someone else's life. I was thinking again about the story of Mary, and I was thinking, what if when the angel came to her, she was scrolling on her phone? Where would her state of mind have been? What would she have been thinking about, whether she wanted to or not, just simply because of what was there presenting itself to her? We know that Mary was a woman who pondered. In fact, after she was given this invitation from the angel, it says that she pondered it in her heart. I think we have a unique challenge in our time and in our day where it is harder for us to ponder. We have to be more intentional about it. We have to set aside time. We have to turn off the world, right? What if, like Mary, these angels come and we miss it? So what was Mary doing? Maybe she was pondering. She was going about her everyday duty. There wasn't maybe all the noise around her, or maybe there was. Maybe there was someone who had a conversation on the way to the well and she thought, I need to be thinking about that. And she chose to clear her mind. We don't know her state of mind, right? But is it possible that because there's so much noise in our world, we're completely missing the thing and the calling that could grow inside of us? So for the remainder of this episode, what I want to be focusing on is how do we reclaim our voice? How do we step back before we step forward in a time of transition like New Year and really get clear on what it is that we want and what it is that we feel God is calling us to do? So how do we reclaim our voice? Learning to reclaim your voice, I believe, is a little like learning to tune in to a radio frequency. Not only is it important, and if you've never seen an old school radio where you turn a knob and get a radio frequency coming at you, you can't listen to multiple stations and get either one clearly. So you have to turn a dial away from one frequency into a different frequency, and sometimes in between there's a little bit of static. But you have to learn personally how to shift the dial in your mind of other inputs from other people into the frequency of your own brain and your God. One of the first Sunday sermons that I did, I talked about the power of music, and I talked about our bodies as actually being instruments for God, where we can tune our own bodies in to God. And one tool I really love is music, right? But there's lots of ways we can do this when we're thinking about what it is we want. One of my favorite ways to do this that I've talked a lot about on the show is writing pen to paper. Not typing, not putting it out on your phone, but actually sitting down hand to paper. It's actually one of the best ways to access your subconscious. That's tested and tried, and one of my favorite things to quote and cite, and one of my favorite things to do in my own life. We hosted a dinner over the holidays, and former college football and head of a big firm on Wall Street came and spoke as the keynote speaker, and he was phenomenal. I had so much fun listening to him, Joe Moglia. And he said something that was really interesting to me. He said at times when he was trying to hear his own voice, he would sit down 1 month and just write everything out that he was thinking, that he was feeling, that he was wanting to do. And then he would wait for a month and he'd come back to his writing. And he said after a month, it was really easy to see where he was lying to himself. Where he wrote out, I think the example he gave was that he loves this band. And then he realized a month later, I didn't even like that band, but the girl that I was dating at the time liked the band. And so I was being persuaded that I liked things I didn't even like, right? As we write and we review our writing, we can start to tune in to who we really are and to what we really want and to what we're really made for. I've shared multiple times on this podcast, I hope you're not sick of this story, a time where I transitioned from one business to then work I've been doing the last few years. And I felt pulled to get totally off of social media. And I was given, I think by the hand of God, this book, The Artist's Way. And every day I started writing 3 pages, and I did this for a year. And I got so clear on who I am, and the voices of the world and what mattered slowly lost their hold on me. Another way to tune into your voice and God's voice is found from one of my very favorite children's books. And there's a story of this little puppet who every day walks around and is given stars and is given dots. Dots if he does something bad, stars if he does something good. He then meets this little girl who's different, and she's a puppet as well. And she's different because she has no dots and no stars. And he asks her, he says, he was a particularly clumsy, unattractive little puppet. And so he mostly just was covered in dots. And he was attracted to this girl, Lucia, not only because not just because she had a lot of stars, but because she didn't have anything at all. There was nothing that stuck to her. Nothing anyone said or did, not the dots or the stars, would stick. And he asked her, why don't they stick? And she told him, it's because every day I go to the wood carver who lives up on a hill named Eli. Now you can sense all the spiritual symbolism, right? The wood carver was their creator. His name was Eli. He was this symbol of our creator. And so she takes this little boy, this little puppet with her. He goes to the creator, the wood carver. They begin to talk, and he softens and starts to feel like himself. And as he leaves the door, one dot falls off. And I think there's so much wisdom here as we spend time with God and think about and talk to him and digest through our day and our thoughts with him. Those things of the world that don't matter start to fall off us. The things that are temporary, the things that are trending, the things that are, from one day to the next, you aren't actually going to care about, let alone in 5 months or a year when you look back. So that's another key. Turn to God and let those things disappear. You'll start to get his mindset as you read his words and his voice. You'll start to think like him as you talk to him, right? So the scriptures are a great place for this. Another way you can reclaim your voice is just spend time getting quiet. Sometimes you have to turn off the noise. You need windows of the day and parts of your life. I'm going to go back now to writing and spend a little bit of time here. The great thing about writing is that there's 1,000 ways to do this. There's not just one way and one thing to write that's going to help you really tap into the subconscious and what you want. I'm going to actually help you with a list of things that have helped me. I'm going to go to writing and spend a little more time there. But as I finish out this other list of things you could do, I just want to emphasize that there's 1,000 ways you could do this. I don't have a program out there that you have to buy to do the exact things you need to do to hear your voice louder and to hear God's voice louder. There's tons of ideas. You could spend time in nature. You can spend time in exercising. You could put this into ChatGPT and say, what are ways that I can let the world have less of a hold on me and hear myself more? There's tons of ideas here. But I do want to focus some time on the writing because I've really used this tool. I think it's one of the best tools that we have. And just share a few techniques I've used in the writing. Originally, when I was planning this episode, I thought, why don't I make a whole download about this? I want to leave it a little looser than that. Downloads are great and they're really helpful, but I felt like in this circumstance, it was going to box you in too much. And it may even do unintentionally what I don't want it to do and move you backwards a step where you're listening to me too much and saying, here's all the things I need to do because these are the things Lizzy has said to do. This is a big list of ideas. Ask yourself, what makes me most excited? What can I try? What do I have enough time for? What fits into my life right now, right? So here are a couple things that have been helpful for me as we specifically focus on writing. One, often when it's like a quarterly review that I do for my own life or annually, I'll make a more of and less of list. This is so revealing. And it maybe is like a little bit of a hack in your brain. Instead of writing sentences as you're just saying, what do I want more of? You're a little more free flowing in your writing. So what are things you want more of? Now, these could be physical things. These could be relationships. Last year, I did an episode around New Year's that I still love. And I would recommend you go back if this is your thing and you're interested in and you want to recap. And I do have a download if you want your download on that episode. And I talked about feelings. Actually, write down what are feelings that you want more of? What are feelings you want less of? For me, writing feelings versus habits is a way more productive starting point. As I think about what feelings I want less of, I then can usually go and say, well, if I want less of franticness, I know my next step this year. I need to cut something out, right? If I want more of connection, now when I think of what I'm going to do in the next step, it may be I just plan a party with my friends, a girls' night out or a book swap or whatever it is, right? So the more of, less of, focusing on feelings in the writing has been really helpful for me, again, to hear my own voice. 2 is some journal questions. I'm going to recommend a couple journal questions that I have loved in here. And again, maybe jot these down, maybe get out a piece of paper and a pen right now and you can write. One question that I have loved is just a simple one, right? You'd think that we all know the answer to this, but I actually think a lot of us don't. And the question is, what do I really want? I mentioned earlier, we were recently in Peru as a family. It was an incredible trip, incredible experience. It was also really hard. We ended up hiking 4 days of the Incan Trail leading to Machu Picchu. We brought all our kids. It was phenomenal. And I think because it was hard and because we had a lot of time just hiking on this trail, I had a lot of time to do this reflecting even before I was thinking about New Year. Unusually for me, unexpectedly for me, I had 2 dreams while I was there. And in the dreams, I was asked the same question, one from a sister who was in the dream, and the other one, I believe I asked myself. And the question was, what do you really want? And in the dream, my sister was looking at me like piercingly, what do you really want? And I kind of told her and she said, no, what do you really want? And so I took some time on the trains and the planes and all the places we were in Peru and journaled about that. What do I really want at this time of life, at this season of life? So that's a question that's going to unlock a ton. I also, went back and read through my journal. And at one point, as I was writing, what do I want? This song from Disney, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, came on. And I thought, ooh, I'm going to change the question from what I want to what do I wish for? It feels more whimsical. It feels less heavy and sad maybe than like, what do I want being so intense? What do I wish for? It was just a little dream that my heart was wishing for. That was also a great version of that question that felt a little more fun and it took the pressure off. Here's a few more questions that have been really fruitful for me. 1, what would I do if I wasn't afraid of what anyone thought? If I didn't care, if I didn't have anyone whispering in my ear, what would I choose to do? What would I get rid of that I'm currently doing that I actually don't care about? What do I have a unique window to do now that might not come back later? This one is really relevant to me as I have my oldest child going to high school next year. I have a unique window of 4 years right now that I'm not going to get back. 4 years from now, she's out of the house, which is a horrible thought. I'm I love her so much. But a great journal question. Maybe I have a dream list, but as I really think about what my unique window is now, I may put off some things that felt like they were so important. What sounds really fun to me? Again, this is back to what do I wish for? Take the pressure off, write something fun. What is something I've always wanted to do? Who is in my life that I could really bless right now? What a great one as you're trying, again, as the inputs of the world are coming in and saying, you have to buy this, or you have to go on that vacation, or you have to whatever, to spend some time and say, wait, who's in my life right now that I could make a unique impact on? I think this is really helpful for the woman, whether no matter the age, who's feeling pressure like they have to do something big for the world, to have some big impact or some big platform or whatever, to instead say, who's in my life that I could bless or impact that I can't in the future? Maybe it's someone elderly. Maybe it's someone in your neighborhood. Maybe it's a child that you have. Maybe it's your own marriage, right? A few more. Where do I need to set boundaries for my own health and happiness? You may not notice this day to day, but there may be someone or something that's taking a lot of bandwidth from you. Where's a boundary that could help you? This question is a great one. Where am I burning out, or where am I feeling a lot of friction in my life? Maybe I'm not going to cut out a relationship, but maybe there's a skill we could both use and utilize and learn that will help take the friction out of this relationship. Maybe you approach them openly. Maybe you have enough of a good relationship to say, hey, every time we talk about X or have to do X together, there's a lot of friction. I really love our relationship. I'd love to continue our friendship. Would you be open with me to think of some ways that we could have less friction around this thing? It's a great one if someone's helping you at work, right? If there's a coworker or someone who reports to you, start paying attention in those quiet moments of like, is there friction I could just get rid of that's there just because I haven't spent time to focus on it? This is also a great, that's my last question I'm going to offer to you, but this is a great exercise, an easy exercise to use ChatGPT for. Maybe you go through my questions or you pick a couple of the questions and one or two of them is really helpful for you. Throw that into ChatGPT, tell Chat what you're trying to do, share which questions were really helpful, and then ask for more questions like that, or ask for more ideas of how to understand more about what you're thinking on a topic. All right, so we're going to move away from questions and some other writing ideas. Another idea is to write a letter that's dated a year from now, looking back on the past year of your life. Tell yourself what you did this year that was the most meaningful thing. Think about 2 to 3 things that you accomplished that you're just so proud of, that you're just so grateful that are now behind you that you never have to deal with again. Is it mending a relationship? Is it quitting a job? Is it starting a company, having a baby, educating yourself into something, getting some great therapy, finally letting something go, forgiving someone? This is a great hack to get an insight into your own life right now that you may say, oh, but I really enjoy doing that thing. But if you think about the freedom that could come a year from now, you may cut out the noise that you've been kidding yourself over and pretending isn't there. When I did this exercise, again, in that time in Peru, I kind of was surprised at the thing that came out. I realized the thing that has been weighing so heavily on me is the 30,000 pictures in my camera roll that have been bugging me for a long time. I think part of it was knowing that I have our oldest daughter leaving for high school, or leaving. She's not leaving anywhere. Actually, she is, because she's been at the school that all of us are at, and she's now leaving to new school, so it feels like she's leaving. But I thought, man, if at the end of this year I had organized my pictures and had some memory books for her, or had some ways to be printing more pictures around the house, I would be so relieved at the end of next year if I looked back and said I did it. I thought, well, that is so fascinating that of all the things I could have said, that's the thing that stuck out first. And so I started thinking about how I'm going to use my time. I went down the line and thought about the things I'm going to be changing now in my time. One of which I'm going to give a little sneak peek to. I'm going to be sharing more with you as a community, an app that I built with some friends that we're hoping to bring back to life. That is maybe one of the best apps that I've ever found for sharing your stories and connecting with closer groups of people than a big, broad audience on social media. So it's really fun because it's directed a business choice I'm making. It's directed a personal choice. It's directed how I'm using my time, and also will probably direct some of the choices I make with taking more pictures, because I've gone away from that in the past because I haven't had a place to put them. Another thing you can do, I've got 3 more ideas. Add prayer in and all throughout this journey. As you're writing, have a prayer in your heart. Stop periodically and ask God for your mind to be clear. Ask God to help you see where you're doing things just because of others' expectations. Be really open with Him. Say, I don't really even know what I'm doing. Or in this one area, I've always been a little bit unclear if it's even something I care about or I want in my life. Ask God to help lead your mind to the most fruitful ideas and thoughts. God is a great multiplier. God is all knowing. As you open yourself up to Him, these practices are going to be so much more fruitful. Another practice that I have used over and over again might not resonate with all of you, but for a certain portion of you, you're going to love this. And it's the portion of you who always have all the ideas, who like to jump around from thing to thing, who have a hard time staying with one thing. And I'm mostly painting a picture of myself right here. And the idea is a dream list. If you're the type of person who always has ideas, you need a place to put them. You don't necessarily need to be jumping from idea to idea year after year, but you need a safe space for all those dreams to go. And what I do with my dream list, I heard this from some friends. I'm trying to remember when I started the dream list. I think at the top it's dated 2017, something like that. And they talked about the year or the list of 100, and I'll put this in the show notes. They talked about creating a list of 100 things you'd like to do someday in your life with no time constraint, with no pressure, and just write it out there, right? So interestingly, I didn't try to force anything on the list. And I think they talked about that. Like, don't put something down just to put it. But if it really speaks to your heart and something that you really think would be fun, but you don't really have a time frame for it, doesn't matter when it happens, just add this to your list of 100. Now, I don't know what kind of magic happens to this in this list and just writing it down and shelving it, not even working on it. But this year, there were 4 things that I put down on the list. Now, the list is short. I only have 26 things so far in all of those years, right? So I'm careful if I don't just put down kind of whatever. 4 of those things happened without me doing a thing to make them happen, which just sounds crazy. One from last year, on the list, I put, I would love to have a well-trained, sweet dog. Now, my husband, Dave, doesn't love dogs. Actually, I think he does, but I think he just doesn't want one more thing on our plates, right? And so he said, let's wait until the kids can really help, which I felt great with. I also didn't want kids in diapers because dogs that carry diapers around is maybe the most disgusting thing in the world. And we also had renovated a few homes. And so we thought, let's wait until we're not renovating a home. This is what we told our kids. And there's no kids in diapers. And so sure enough, our kids weren't in diapers. And rather than me looking for a dog, one of our daughters came to us last year and said, I want a dog, had a whole PowerPoint presentation on why dogs are good for kids, why they're good for their immune system, why they're good for responsibility. She had a plan for how to take care of the dog. She had found the breeder that was incredible and why the breeder was great. I mean, thing after thing after thing she did. Now, maybe it's a coincidence that happened to be on my list. I don't know. Another one is I wanted to visit where I had served my mission for the Church of Jesus Christ, Croatia. I thought someday this is going to happen. Someday this would be really neat. Well, miracle happens this year. Actually, last year we got a call from my in-laws and they said, hey, it's a big celebration this upcoming year and we'd love to take all the kids to Croatia. How do you feel about that? We know you served your mission there. And I just thought how incredible that that's where we decided to go. Another one was going somewhere in Latin America and doing something hard. I hadn't even realized I'd put that on the list. Some kind of hiking, something more immersion. I put this on years ago. Well, of course, it took a lot of work for me as well to do this for our family. But really, my husband, with the help of an awesome travel agent, planned this whole trip, planned the 4 days of hiking. And it wasn't something that I even actively put a ton of time and attention into before because this was just on my husband's heart and something he wanted. So dream lists are powerful. I have a few things. This year I used it as I thought, there's a few business ideas I want to do that at this point I really know are going to be something I'm headed towards. I really wanted to do one of them next year. But as I wrote down and I did all the journaling and everything, I realized I just can't take this on next year. I then had a realization, this is probably better after I do a few things because there's a little more credibility, there's probably more opportunity. So I just put it on my dream list. I have some really exciting things I hope I do someday on that dream list. But if that helps you clear out all the pressure of what you need to do next year and listen to what your heart is telling you, that's a great tool. I went off on that one maybe a little bit too much, but for those of you who it hits, I think it'll hit hard. And now I've come to the end of the list of how to listen to yourself. And we're going to jump in to a quick section at the end of this podcast on where you go from here. Now that you're clear on what you want, on who you are, on where you want to make progress or become or cut things out of your life, where you're going to go. But when do you know you're done with the journaling? I want you to do it until you get excited. I want you to do it until you have a breakthrough of where you realized, you know what? I need to do things a little differently than I've been doing them. I want you to do it until you believe it's actually you speaking. Now, for those of you listening in who say, I have been doing this for a couple of hours and I still don't know, then this exercise might be the most important thing you do and maybe the only thing you focus on with whatever life role you're playing right now, whether it's a student or a mom or a sister or a coworker, wherever you're using the most of your time. Maybe your big emphasis this year is just getting clear. Maybe it's not a couple hours exercise, right? Maybe you go by the artist's way and go through all those exercises and really spend time this year attacking this thing. If you are in that situation, this might be the best use of your time and the best thing you do all year. So don't be scared about that, right? So let's turn our attention now to where we want to go from here. So once you're clear on what you want and what you don't want and who you are, to be honest, this is where there is so much information out there. There are so many good strategies to goal setting, there's great podcasts, great mentors that can help you. I'm going to share just a couple tools that I have used, but if none of these resonate with you, go find something that does. And again, there's really good literature. ChatGPT will have great ideas around this on, okay, I'm really clear I want to do this or I want to feel this more. What are some things that you can recommend? I like thinking of them in some broad categories. One is, what do I need to put on the calendar? 2, what do I need to clear out from my life? And 3, what are cadences I need to add into my life regularly so that I make sure I do this thing? We don't need to set a goal around everything we want to add or remove from our life. It's not always a cadence of do this thing every day, every morning, every week, every night. But there are some times when that really helps. There are some times where it's just get one thing on the calendar. And there are some times where it's just, I need to clear this out. So for calendars, I actually have experimented with a ton of different calendars. I had my designer make one that I'm offering as a download that you can find in the show notes. I'll also talk about on social media. The thing that I've loved most, I have 2 calendars, one that's been most effective for my family and one that's been most effective for me. The calendar that I have that I've created for you for your family use, which you could also use if you're, I would broaden this and broaden your idea of family. If right now your family is roommates or it's something that looks less traditional, you don't have kids, it doesn't really matter. It's really zooming out and taking a 3-month approach. So there's 4 calendars for next year, Q1 through Q4, with 3 months on there with a little bucket list on the bottom. This has been so helpful for me with my own kids and with my husband to think in bigger chunks of time. When we zoom out just a little bit and think about what are we accomplishing in Q1, January, February, March, not even accomplishing, what are we doing that's fun? What are we doing that's helping us become close? Are we really focused on service or whatever it is that you value highly in your family? When you can see that 3-month overview, you have things to look forward to. It helps you get some clarity on what matters most and what you say matters most that you're not really adding in. So that calendar I have with some fun, again, bucket list items that aren't necessarily geared towards doing even with children. They're just fun things to do in that season of life. So I have those that you can download. And then monthly calendars that I have that are kind of in a horizontal view with a right-hand column that just says monthly focus. For me, it's really helpful to zoom out on the quarter and then to zoom in on the month and be really clear about 1 or 2 things that I really need to accomplish that month. I don't want to get more detailed than that. I find if I just have 1 or 2 things and make sure I get those things done, I'm marching towards what I want to do from a longer vision. So that's what I would do for calendar. If you get really clear on what you want, think about the things that need to go on the calendar. Is it I want to spend some more time with my mom. Maybe you say, I'm going to put something on the calendar today that we're going to do in the month of January. Cadences is the next thing I'm going to talk about. Sorry, let's clear that. Another thing I want to talk about on calendar is think of a couple things you want to be marching toward in the big picture. Maybe you write this at the top of the calendar. Maybe you just take out a sheet of paper and say, what I hope 2026, maybe this goes back to your letter, right? A year from now, zooming back, pick 2 or 3 things you want to focus on. That will really help you then as you go to your personal calendars, those monthly calendars, to say, if by the end of the year, I want to make sure that I've done X, Y, and Z or accomplished, what are some dates I need to put on the calendar and make sure that are done by to get to that point? That I want to give a little aside for something really fun that I heard about also from my friend Katerina. She turned me on to something that is on the Happiness Project podcast. Every year they pick one word. And now, if you've done this before, let me add a little context, because I've done this, and to be honest, only 1 year has this been helpful. It's been kind of mildly helpful. But what they do is they pick a symbol to talk about what they want for that next year. I went and listened to that podcast, and I actually think it's a really powerful tool. So as you're thinking about big picture, what I want for this year, go listen to that podcast. When they pick a symbol, they then find something like a mug or a piece of jewelry to symbolize that feeling they're trying to get in their life, or the thing that they're really attacking. If it's having a baby or it's shutting down doors on their company, a lot of times that's a feeling that is more pervasive than just that one thing, right? So it may be, I want to have more presence, like be living in the present. Maybe I pick the symbol of a bow to remind me that that is the focus. And then I break down how I'm doing that, right? That's just kind of an aside, something fun. I'm going to try it for this year for the first time. So we've talked about calendar. I want to talk about clearing out for just a minute. I came across the best quote that I don't have pulled up, but I'll share on socials and try to remember to put in the show notes. But it said, the most impactful people are often those who understand that the law of addition is better met by the law of subtraction. And that is, if there's something that you want to feel more often in your life or have more often in your life, it's usually better to say, what do I need to cut out to have than what do I need to add? So thinking about what do I need to clear out? This could, again, be physical things. This could be spiritual, emotional things. There's someone I need to forgive. Is there a role that I'm currently playing that I don't need to play anymore? I want to move now into cadences. Go listen to my last year's episode. I go a lot more into this, but it's, again, pretty self-explanatory. What are things that I need to do regularly from getting really clear about what I want in my life? This could look like morning cadences. This could look like evening cadences. This could look like weekly. It could look like monthly. In the example of me wanting to make sure I have a camera roll that's organized, maybe more pictures printed. Are there things I want to do every week to stay on top of that? Is there one big push I'm going to put into my calendar? It's an all day going through my camera roll. But what are the cadences that will help me do this in an ongoing manner moving forward? This is really great for relationships, whether it's relationships with a spouse and date nights or times to regularly connect that don't feel heavy and like we're always just planning together. I'm speaking from experience. This is something that I am bad at because I fit so much into my schedule that we've been trying to do more date nights and committing to more of that this year. It could also look like spiritual relationships with God. What are the cadences so I can more regularly have quiet in my life, hear from him? Maybe it's a journaling practice. There's so much good data around this on what you're thinking through. These are more goal setting, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to go into a few strategies that will hopefully help you. If you can make commitment to a one-time event that will help you to change, that can be really impactful. And it's better if you want to do something instead of what I don't want to do. So we talked a little bit about cutting things out of your life. Sometimes you can just say, I need to cut a job or a role or something I regularly spend time doing that's just not productive. It's just not helpful. It's just a habit that just really doesn't help me. But it's really great if you can also think of the things you want to do to replace that or to add something in your life. Also, as you're thinking about the calendaring, we've jumped a little bit into this. Maybe it's a one-time event that you want to add something more in your life. We talked about, maybe a relationship with your mom. I thought about this a few years ago that I really wanted to strengthen some relationships, and I planned my own birthday party and had the time of my life. It was the best. I might do that again this year. Another strategy, again, this is in all sorts of podcasts and literature. Find a friend who wants to do, experience, or become something with you. There's a ton of literature. If you have a buddy, it's way more effective. It also just might be more fun. You just might enjoy your life more if you do something with a friend. They may also have some breakthroughs. If you're attacking the same thing together, becoming the same thing together, they may find a great podcast for you to listen to together, or a great strategy in your home, or something that really works. So you just have someone that can give you some added input. The last thing I want to share as a great strategy, actually I have two more. The next thing I want to share is to find a place where you can see these things often, whether it's the calendar, whether it's the big picture. We talked about your one goal that maybe has a physical symbol. If you're really trying to feel something more in your life or kick out a feeling you don't want in your life, help yourself remember that thing. It could be an affirmation or a mantra you repeat to yourself, but set yourself up for success by seeing it more regularly. When are you going to revisit? When are you going to change? When are you going to recommit? And so maybe you add this into your cadences, right? Is there something you do weekly so that you can see these things monthly, quarterly, that help you remember? A year is just too long. And again, we really overestimate what we can do in a year. Just break it down to what's the one thing I'm going to do this month. Stick that word up on your mirror or where you're going to see it on your phone lock screen. It doesn't matter where it is. Memorize a little poem, but really just focus on the one thing. And I promise you, over time, you're going to get a lot more done than trying to do 50 things this month. Do one thing, focus on one thing. Lastly, my last strategy, again, as you have reclaimed your voice and if you've created all this space around what it is you want to do and who you are and where you want your voice to be, again, remember to talk to God. I mentioned this before, to talk to him all the way along in your writing, but this year I've done something a little differently. Again, as I took some time around the Thanksgiving holiday to get quiet, to reclaim my voice, to realize where I was a little off and doing things for other people, not for myself and my family and God, I realized that there are two things I really want to become this year. But then as I was thinking about how many years I've said that, I realized I've done all I can on this one. Literally, if it's up to me, this one is impossible. And so I was sitting there in a morning study and I thought, well, why don't I tell God about it? Why don't I tell him that if it's up to me, this is actually impossible. I don't have a shot. I've tried so many years, I can't do this anymore. And then ask for his help. Ask for him to jump in and let me know when it's him that's jumping in so I can attack it with his help. We'll see what he's going to do with it this year, but I already feel a different kind of hope around it because I'm not relying on my own arm to do it, right? I'm not relying on my own brains or my own willpower. I'm trusting him that he'll give me a new strategy or a new person in my life to make it doable. I know with God, we can do things that are otherwise impossible to us. And ending this episode, I hope I'm ending it for you with hope that you may tackle something and accomplish something and become something this year that you never thought you could do because you enlisted the help of God. I will say this year, I tackled a challenge that I've been trying to overcome for years, and it worked. There's an actual strategy that worked for me that removed the thing in my life that I have been just banging my head on a wall, up against a wall on for a decade or more, right? So try it, see what we can do. So I hope this episode has been helpful for you. I hope that it sparked whether something I said or something you thought about as I was speaking, something that's going to make you a better you and have more peace and calm and excitement about getting really clear about what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want in your life, about enlisting God's help, whether it is to just know what you want or to actually tackle that thing. If you loved this episode, I'd be so honored if you'd share it with someone you know that would love it. Perhaps it's the person that you want to be doing something with together this year. If the calendar spoke to you and that's something you're excited about, don't forget to go get that in the show notes or over on socials. I also am working on a website, which I'm so excited about, which is going to be I'm excited about how I'm formatting it, and I really hope it just helps you get the materials you need and cuts through the fluff. To get the downloads to print out, you could go listen to last week's episode with David Butler about a real spiritual way of approaching the new year. That will be so resonant with you. Also, I have some more material from my episode last year. I've been at it decades. These are the best things that I have found, the best formats I've found. And I think you are going to love the calendar. You're going to love last year's episode and love this stuff for your family. I want to sign off by wishing you the best this holiday season. Whenever you find this episode or into next year, know that every day is a chance for a new year and a new day, not just on New Year's Day, but every single day. And I'm praying that you'll create time to hear your own voice this year. Again, maybe you need a couple weeks just with some journaling to do it. That's okay. But the time that you put in to get really clear on why you're here on earth, on what's the impact you can make this year that's unique and that's needed no matter what the scale looks like, and to put the time in to hear God's voice this year for you. I want you to trust that you're right where you need to be for God to use you to make the next step and make impact right now, right where you are. So until next week or next year, depending on what day you listen to this, sending you love, sending you prayers, and sending you all my belief and confidence that you're exactly where you need to be, that you have the exact impact ahead of you that you uniquely can make. And I can't wait to talk to you next time.